Greetings, shinobi of the digital realm. You've just entered the domain of Six-Path Weeb, where alternate timelines unravel and headcanon meets hyperspeed. Transmission online. Today's speculative scenario is titled, What if Minato's words deeply hurt Naruko? Part 2. Disclaimer. Protocol engaged. This content is created solely for entertainment and discussion purposes. All anime footage and materials belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. No ownership is claimed. Prepare your mind. Focus your chakra. Let's begin. Walking at a relaxed pace toward Kaizen Village, Naruko hummed a gentle tune she had once heard from her surrogate grandfather. She had cleverly sealed her puppet, Kumo, within a concealed compartment on her wrist, ensuring the villagers wouldn't feel uneasy or intimidated by her presence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the fields, she reached the quiet village gates. With nimble steps, she slipped past the resting gatekeeper, an elderly man seemingly lost in peaceful slumber. Kaizen Village rested on the outskirts of the grass country, a quaint, commerce-driven settlement with only a small portion of its inhabitants trained as shinobi. Naruko had chosen this destination intentionally, knowing that traders and merchants often carried whispers of information with them. She smiled warmly and waved at a nearby farmer, who balanced a hoe over his shoulder, accompanied by his young son eagerly trying to mimic his father's stride. The child's innocent effort to prove his maturity brought a bittersweet feeling to Naruko's heart. She herself had spent much of her youth striving to earn a glimpse of acknowledgement from her father, whose attention always seemed to rest solely on her sibling. She had long stopped trying after losing her rightful position as heir to the clan. Naruko knew she had let go of her childhood innocence the day she constructed her first puppet, Kumo. That marked the beginning of her vow to show her family that she possessed strength and capability, even without their recognition. Just you wait, Tosama. When I become a jounin, you'll finally see how far I've come without needing your help. I'll show. Her internal monologue was interrupted by a soft cry echoing from a dimly lit alley. She paused, noting that dusk had already transitioned into early night. The time was nearing 7 o'clock. The cry returned, now laced with muffled sobs and unclear pleas. Naruko heard an adult voice shout angrily, followed by a harsh sound, likely from someone pushing or knocking something over. Why are you even here? The voice snapped. I didn't hurt anyone, I promise. Replied a young, clearly frightened voice. You took someone precious from us. Another voice, this time female, accused, accompanied by another scolding tone. Naruko's brows furrowed. From her hidden position near the alley's entrance, she saw 4 adult figures standing over a small, trembling child. The little one was wrapped in oversized, worn-out clothing and clearly frightened. Though Naruko couldn't see all the details, the situation was unmistakably wrong. Back away. Naruko's voice rang out, clear and authoritative. Her presence now visible, she stepped into the narrow alley, her eyes sharp and determined. One of the adults, a tall woman, scowled. Stay out of this, kid. It's none of your business. Naruko ignored the warning. As one of the men began advancing toward her, Naruko subtly activated a chakra thread, wrapping it gently, but firmly, around his collar and lifting him just enough to keep him from continuing. With a flick of her wrist, Naruko summoned Kumo from her wrist seal. The puppet stood guard at the alley's entrance, blocking any potential escape. Naruko then used several other chakra threads to gently bind the remaining aggressors, ensuring they couldn't move without causing a fuss. With the situation under control, she turned her attention back to the trembling child near a cardboard box. Approaching with soft steps, she crouched beside her and smiled beneath the mask that shielded her identity. Hey there, she said gently, do you have a name? The girl hesitated, then responded quietly, no. The lady at the orphanage said I don't deserve one. Naruko's expression softened. I don't agree with that. Everyone deserves a name. May I see your face, please? The child flinched slightly but nodded. Naruko removed her mask to reassure her. Slowly, the girl unwrapped the layers of clothing around her face. She had short gray hair with soft sideburns, feline-like eyes with reddish irises, small fangs, and a faintly tanned complexion. Her ears had a gentle point to them, reminiscent of folklore creatures, and her hands and feet had subtle tufts of hair. Naruko met her gaze warmly. I don't see a monster. Do you know what I see? I see someone who deserves a friend. Would you let me be that friend? The child shivered for a moment, then took a shaky breath. Promise you won't hurt me? Naruko nodded sincerely. I promise, I will never harm you. Not now, not ever. The girl stared up at her, unsure. Naruko continued, since you don't have a name yet, may I give you one? She nodded slowly. I'll call you Shinyu, because you'll be my precious friend. Shinyu's eyes widened. In a heartbeat, she leapt into Naruko's arms and hugged her tightly. Naruko gently patted her back, her eyes shining. My name's Naruko, she said softly. Thank you, Naruko-sama, Shinyu whispered gratefully. No need for honorifics, Naruko replied kindly. Just Naruko is fine. Nah. Naruko-san? Shinyu asked cautiously. Naruko smiled and nodded. That's perfect. Thank you. Naruko-san, Shinyu said, cheeks flushing with warmth. All right, Shin-chan, Naruko said affectionately, can you step back for a moment? I need to take care of something. Shinyu nodded in awe, still amazed by the display of Naruko's skill. How did you do that? I'll teach you sometime if you'd like, Naruko replied. I'd love that very much. Great. Now, could you close your eyes, cover your ears, and count to 30? Do you know how to count? I taught myself, Shinyu admitted bashfully. But I'm not sure if I do it right. Naruko chuckled softly. That's okay. I'll help you if you ever want me to. Will you stay? Not like the others? Naruko placed a reassuring hand on her head. Shin-chan, I'm not going anywhere. Shinyu smiled and covered her ears with her hands. 1, 2, 3. She peeked briefly with one eye before quickly closing it again when Naruko caught her. 4, 5, 6, she continued sweetly. Naruko stood beside her, peaceful and calm, ready to guide her new friend toward a brighter future, one where no one would be left alone in the shadows. When Naruko reached the count of 12, the figure turned and lowered 4 fingers with a calm expression. Let me show you how I respond to someone I don't particularly favor. Back in Konoha, her parents quietly felt grateful to still be around. That night, the people of Kaizen village heard strange, eerie noises, but they remained indoors, hesitant to explore the source due to fear of the unknown. Meanwhile, the newly named Shinyu continued her evening activities with cheerful energy, as if nothing could bother her spirit. The next morning, the villagers were surprised to find 4 individuals suspended harmlessly by their undergarments from the outstretched pointing finger of the founder's statue, Kaizen, which portrayed him confidently pointing to the sky. The sight was more comical than frightening, and the expressions frozen on their faces seemed to suggest they had learned a meaningful lesson, only known to them. That day, Naruko learned that whenever she took Shinyu out shopping, she needed to use a transformation technique on her companion to make it easier for her to enter public stores unnoticed. Shinyu had even once needed to gently stop Naruko from confronting a rude shopkeeper who made an unkind remark. Currently, our young heroine was helping Shinyu dispose of her old clothing, rags stitched together into a makeshift shirt. Now, Shinyu wore a simple black top, a bright red apron-style skirt with dark shorts underneath, deep blue sandals, a black beanie to help cover her unique hair, and dark goggles to shield her eyes. She also wore black gloves to cover her clawed hands. Naruko had gifted her one of her signature half-face masks, a symbol of mutual trust. Though it didn't fit perfectly, Shinyu cherished it and wore it around her neck. Naruko explained why she was in Kaizen and mentioned her plans to stay for about 2 months. Though Shinyu didn't particularly enjoy village life, she agreed. In Kaizen village, there were 6 bustling taverns and 2 entertainment halls that served as the central network for local information. Naruko spent a week speaking with the owners and staff, encouraging them to share any helpful information they came across. In return, she would offer compensation depending on the value of the intel. To build trust, she deposited 5,000 ryo in each location that agreed to cooperate. Throughout this, Shinyu never let go of Naruko's hand, afraid her new friend might disappear. She admired how Naruko could speak with confidence and sincerity that drew people to trust her. Naruko then focused her efforts on connecting with street children, those without homes, some with unusual abilities, others simply overlooked. She purchased an apartment building on the outskirts of the village, fully furnished it, and invited the children to live there, providing them with clothes, meals, and safety. One might wonder how she could afford all this. Years of being overlooked by her parents had taught Naruko the value of resourcefulness. She learned to appreciate and manage everything she had. Plus, she had reliable support from the Sandaime Hokage and certain clan leaders when she truly needed financial backing. Nearly all the children, 98%, developed sincere gratitude for Naruko and respected her deeply. They pledged their loyalty not out of obligation, but because she gave them hope, purpose, and a better life. Naruko trained the children, including Shinyu, in the art of subtlety and gathering information, using a guide she received as a birthday gift from her friend Sami Yamanaka. She was clear about her intentions from the start. I want you to help me gather important information from across the world. Grow up in different villages, gain trust, and report anything significant back to me. Are you willing to do that?" Every one of them agreed, even those who hadn't yet formed a strong bond with her. There were now 37 children, and the number was growing. Ranging from 5 to 15 years old, they all pledged themselves to her, because she gave them more than shelter, she gave them a mission. Naruko used her clones to divide training among the children. One clone taught cryptic communication and hand signs. Another focused on world knowledge and geography. Others handled physical training, chakra control, stealth, and even acting to help them blend in naturally. They rotated between lessons every 3 hours. Once Naruko felt they were ready, she had them collect information from around the village and write it in codes for her to decipher. She gave them points based on difficulty and creativity. For fun and challenge, she also had them simulate stealth missions, like harmlessly retrieving small items from shops to test their stealth abilities. Communication was their biggest challenge, until they discovered a 12-year-old who could communicate with birds. With his help, Naruko organized a network where messages could be carried by birds, each identified by a green painted left toe. After 2 months, Naruko placed a small spider-shaped seal on their wrists. Their group had grown to 53, prompting her to buy a second apartment nearby. Though it would take a bit more time for the older children to be fully prepared, she couldn't wait. She created a fire clone and shared half her chakra with it. Stay as long as needed. Have Tori-kun send a bird weekly. In 2 months, help the 9 15-year-olds choose a region, except for rain country, I'll handle that one. When your time is up, sell the apartments and leave the earnings with the last child. Understand? The clone nodded respectfully. Yes, boss. Naruko smiled and turned to leave when she felt a familiar weight on her back. Shin-chan. I'm going with you. Shin-chan. You said best friends are like family. You're my first real friend. So I'm going with you. Shin-chan. I know I nearly messed up last month. But you also said real friends help each other grow. Shin-chan. What am I supposed to do without you, Naruko? She sniffled. Naruko chuckled softly. I was just going to ask if you packed. Maybe, she admitted with a groan. Go call the others. I need to speak to everyone. As the weight lifted from her back, Naruko smiled fondly. She still didn't know how Shinyu always managed to sneak up on her. Flashback. It was a quiet full moon night. Naruko couldn't sleep and had wandered into the forest when she found a familiar little girl curled on the ground, trembling. Shin-chan? Naruko called gently. Shinyu stood up abruptly, eyes wide. Naruko-san, please. You can't be here. You might get hurt. Naruko calmly walked forward and hugged her. Remember, Shin-chan, best friends share everything. Shinyu sobbed into her chest. I feel like a monster. Every full moon something takes over, I feel like something else is trying to control me. Naruko gently stroked her back. Then fight it. I believe in you. Suddenly, Shinyu's body began to transform. Her features sharpened, her posture shifted, and she struggled with the instincts she was battling. Naruko activated chakra reinforcement to avoid being accidentally scratched. Despite her growing distress, he kept whispering encouragement. But she lost control. She grew, her eyes wild, her form unrecognizable from the gentle girl Naruko knew. As she lunged, Naruko formed a protective chakra construct and safely subdued her. Even as she growled and resisted, Naruko refused to harm her. He tranquilized her carefully and sat beside her, softly holding her paw-like hand. You're my best friend, she whispered. I'll find a way to help you. I promise. By sunrise, Shinyu had returned to her usual self, curled up and trembling. Naruko gently wrapped a blanket around her. Don't worry, Shin-chan. I'll keep looking for a cure. No matter what. End flashback. In her research on how to counteract the mystical curse, Naruko discovered that the sound of the violin had a soothing effect on the werewolf-like creature, eventually lulling it into a peaceful sleep, though it took nearly an hour for the effect to set in. Gradually, the front yard began filling with her students. Several of her instructional clones remained on the periphery, eager to listen to what their mentor had to share. The students began murmuring among themselves upon seeing her, but with a simple raised hand, Naruko signaled for silence. They complied immediately. Without a word, they organized themselves into orderly lines according to age, the line for the 15-year-olds being the longest, followed by the 7-year-olds. Naruko gave a small nod of approval once the entire yard was silent. Today marks the end of the time I allocated to remain here before embarking on my journey, she began, her voice clear and calm. Before I go, is there anyone among you who no longer wishes to continue training? If so, know this, you will always have a place here. You may stay in this house as long as you wish, and at no cost. She waited, scanning the crowd. No one stepped forward. The student's eyes burned with unwavering determination. Naruko offered a gentle smile. You will each be receiving your assignments over the next few months. Prepare well. Once you've reached your designated country, send a messenger bird to Tori-kun. She looked at a cheerful student who nodded energetically. Once you're settled, send me the name of your host nation or village 2 months later. I'll be waiting in Konoha. Understood? A chorus of affirmations followed. Naruko turned back to the crowd. Make sure you know where Tori-kun will be stationed. You'll all send biannual updates to me through him. Even the smallest detail may prove to be invaluable for the safety of others. She paused, brushing away a few tears forming in her eyes before composing herself. Know this, I am proud of each and every one of you. I believe in your potential, and I thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. She bowed respectfully, then rose with a calm resolve. She had always given her students a choice, none were forced to follow her path. A senior student named Aoi stepped forward and bowed deeply. No, sensei. Thank you for being someone we could look up to, someone who gave us purpose. As one, every student bowed and murmured words of gratitude. They all knew that what they were undertaking was unconventional, possibly even frowned upon, but if it could help their teacher in any way, they would gladly continue. For Naruko-sensei. Back in Konoha, Naruko was diligently practicing the fourth Doden technique her grandfather had taught her, earth-style, stone spears. She completed the hand seals and called out the name of the jutsu. Immediately, the ground in front of her erupted, launching stone spears in rapid succession toward a tree 50 feet away. The spear struck directly at the target she had carved into the trunk. True, her original form might not use this technique often, relying more on chakra threads for versatility, but it was still useful to understand. After all, teaching others this knowledge was part of her dream. Passing on her skills had become one of Naruko's aspirations ever since she began exploring the art of puppetry. Her parents had unintentionally compelled her to learn this path, but now she embraced it. Deep down, she felt as though she was already living part of that dream. Fueled by purpose, Naruko repeated the hand seals. This time she split the chain midway, and again, spears shot forward and embedded themselves in the tree. Pleased with her precision, she transitioned to training with her selected weapon, a scythe. This was not the ornate obsidian scythe she normally wielded, but a simpler one, a wooden handle with a steel blade. Though lighter, it still allowed her to practice the required movements. Swish. Slash. Swish. Sweep. Slash. Motion. She flowed through the forms of her dizzy spell-stinging fist, combining it with scythe strikes. The afterimages of her motion merged into a spiral, giving the illusion of a green glowing pupil turning counterclockwise. In a swift moment, she slashed at the air and exhaled. Too slow, she thought. She spun the blade above her head, bent her knees slightly, lunged, and struck again. Better. Now for the final one. She spun the blade behind her, paused for 5 full minutes, then lunged once more, only for the weapon to slip and clatter onto the training ground. She stared at it, visibly frustrated, unaware that someone was quietly watching her from a distance. Naruko glanced at the sky and blinked at the emerging stars. Time to head home, she murmured. Just as she bent down to retrieve the scythe, she was forced to react, kicking backward instinctively and rolling forward. She retrieved her weapon and adopted a guarded stance, eyes narrowing at a mysterious figure who had attempted to sneak up on her. The silhouette rubbed its jaw with a low crack. She couldn't clearly see the person. Naruko assumed it was male only by size and posture, resembling someone hunched and shadowed by strange tendrils that swayed unnaturally. That really stung. The figure groaned. Then he muttered, not as quietly as he likely intended, and I thought I knew everything about you. A stalker? But that's not Hinata, the clone thought, alarmed. Identify yourself, she ordered firmly. Me? I am the Queen's emissary, the figure replied, offering a slow, deliberate bow. She would like to meet you. I'm not going anywhere, Naruko stated firmly. You tried to ambush me. Very well, the man replied. She will come to you. Before Naruko could respond or act, the man performed a series of hand signs. Summoning technique. A thick cloud of smoke enveloped him as he collapsed. The smoke towered above, reaching higher than the Hokage's tower, then condensed to a normal human size. When it cleared, Naruko involuntarily gasped. Standing before her was a tall woman in a flowing dress made of shadow-like threads that rippled with both elegance and eerie energy. Her long midnight black hair cascaded around her face, which was delicately shaped like a heart. A regal crown studded with glistening gems sat atop her head, clearly crafted for royalty. Then her eyes opened, revealing 4 brilliant crimson irises filled with intense power. The sheer presence of her gaze overwhelmed Naruko, knocking the wind from her lungs. She dropped to her knees, clutching her chest, struggling to breathe. The atmosphere suddenly shifted as the woman gently coughed into her hand, and her eyes transformed, now showing only 2 soft crimson eyes filled with warmth. Naruko took a deep breath and slowly stood again, regaining her composure and fixing the woman with a sharp, determined look. The woman's expression shifted to a pleased smile as she moved closer. Naruko didn't flinch, though she remained alert. Even if the dress looked restrictive, Naruko sensed she wouldn't be able to outrun her. Dispelling crossed her mind, but she pushed the thought away. She had a purpose to fulfill. "I am the Queen of Night," the woman introduced, her voice smooth and regal. "Ruler of all arachnids. You may call me Queen Kumamara. But for you," she said with a gentle tap on Naruko's nose, "you may call me Mara." Naruko remained silent, her stance guarded. "Aren't you going to introduce yourself?" Mara asked pleasantly. "I mean no harm, clone," she added softly. Naruko's form stiffened. Mara gave a knowing nod. "Yes, I know. We've been observing you ever since your mentor crafted her first puppet. I am genuinely impressed." The clone remained stoic. "What is it you want with our leader?" "I wish for her to become our summoner," the queen said. With a graceful motion, she conjured a scroll as large as the toad summoning contract. She handed it to the clone, who accepted it carefully. The scroll was heavy enough to require support from chakra threads, which Naruko summoned with precision. Mara observed this and gave an approving smile. "Your mentor will be the first ever to form a contract with us." She unfurled the scroll and noticed that no other names were listed on it. Turning to the girl beside her, she raised a curious eyebrow. "What exactly makes Boss so extraordinary?" "I simply said I was thoroughly impressed," the girl responded promptly. "And how has she impressed you?" she inquired. "In numerous ways," the girl answered with a snap of her fingers. From a nearby bush, a throne formed of elegantly moving spiders emerged, followed by another chair that glided into place behind it. Mara gracefully seated herself and gestured for Naruko to take a seat as well. Naruko eyed the chair with cautious suspicion but eventually sat down. She chose to educate herself despite her upbringing. Instead of dwelling on what she lacked, she strived to prove her talent through perseverance. She's a brilliant strategist, mastering 3 earth techniques in just over a month. On top of that, she learned techniques from other elemental affinities shortly afterward. She has refined taste, displays respectful manners, and, most importantly, is composed and ingenious. These are the qualities I value in a summoner. She gestured toward the scroll, paused briefly, blinked, and then spoke swiftly. "When she returns, present this to her so she may sign it if she wishes. The hand seals are already in place. Ask her to summon me when possible so we may converse. Farewell." With a subtle puff of smoke, Mara and the spiders vanished. Naruko, momentarily startled, found herself landing gently on the ground. She didn't react outwardly, only stared intently at the summoning scroll still suspended by her chakra threads. She unrolled it again and read aloud the elegant script, "Arachnid Summoning Contract," written in graceful, flowing handwriting. "Boss is going to be thrilled about this." A short while later. Our spirited blonde heroine had about 3 months remaining before she needed to return to the Hidden Leaf Village. That left her with ample time for one last stop before heading toward Ame. A strange sensation trickled down her spine as she entered the next town, followed by another uneasy chill. On her back, Shin looked at her with concern. "Are you all right, Naruko-san?" Naruko steadied her posture, keeping her expression composed. "It feels as though someone, somewhere, is talking about me. And at the same time, this town is too quiet," Shin whispered. "Creepier than a quiet town," Naruko muttered. "Please be quiet, Naruko-san. I hear something." Sure enough, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed behind a nearby building. As Naruko took in her surroundings, she found the condition of the town less than impressive. The buildings were worn down and neglected, their paint faded and peeling. Refuse gathered along the edges of homes, and a strange smell lingered in the air. A strange-looking animal lay motionless nearby, barely recognizable. More footsteps followed. Shin held on more tightly, resting her head against Naruko's neck. Naruko lifted a hand to gently reassure her and continued walking carefully, trying to recall the town's name. From what she remembered, it was meant to be a hub for transporting produce toward the hidden sand village. Trains brought vegetables near the desert's edge, where they were transferred to caravans bound for Suna. Naruko marked the place on her mental map. She believed stories shared by merchants and travelers often held traces of truth, even in older accounts. Still, the unsettling silence made her uneasy. She disliked feeling vulnerable or exposed. That sensation of being observed, of having no control over one's environment, it was a feeling she worked hard to avoid. She gently flared her chakra, carefully ensuring Shin wasn't affected, and summoned her latest puppet. During her time in Kaizen village, she had been far from idle. While her shadow clones instructed local children, she drew inspiration from one particular child who had been ostracized. Kaizen village, she had learned, had once been a place where unethical experiments were conducted. One child, found in the forest, bore signs of past trauma and confusion, including loss of memory. He had been taken at a young age from Konoha. She named him Aoi, giving him a sense of identity and connection. From that encounter, she crafted a puppet in the form of a python, sleek, precise, and awe-inspiring. As she summoned it, the large serpent slithered forward, brushing against the buildings as it passed. Naruko stood calmly atop its head, hood drawn, casting a commanding presence over the town below. "Come forth," she called out. At first, there was only silence. Then, gradually, townspeople began to emerge from behind structures, one by one. They were ordinary citizens, not hostile. Eventually, the steady stream of people ended with an elderly man hobbling forward from behind a stack of crates. Naruko's brow furrowed under her hood, but the shadow concealed her expression. "Hero?" a timid voice asked. She looked down to see a boy, slightly older than Shin, pointing up at her. "Hero?" he repeated, louder this time. The townspeople began murmuring to one another. The child, now nearly shouting, called out again, "Hero!" At once, the crowd erupted into cheers. Hats were tossed into the air, voices raised in excitement. "Hero! Hero!" they chanted. Naruko glanced back at Shin, who only shrugged in response. "Please, Hero. We need your help," the boy called up once more, eyes full of hope. Naruko sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose, whispering inwardly, "What have I gotten myself into this time?" Our blonde heroine's shoulders drooped slightly. "Why am I doing this again?" Naruko asked herself, standing at the entrance of the once bustling train tunnel that now sat abandoned in the quiet outskirts of the rice town. The tunnel was a massive arch carved into the side of a mountain, originally designed to accommodate 6 large trains at once. The sandstone lining its edges was now worn and cracked with age, though its grandeur still lingered. 2 other tunnels like it spanned the town, built in the same architectural style. "Ah, right. Our agreement." Flashback. "I'm sorry, but I'm not a hero," Naruko had said from atop her large puppet, Python. The moment her voice echoed through the area, the townspeople grew silent. "What? No, you are a hero. You even have your own powerful creature," a voice from the crowd exclaimed. Naruko clenched her fists lightly as Shin, the small girl clinging to her back, tightened her grip. With a calm breath, Naruko lowered Python's head in a sign of peace and dismounted gracefully, her arms folded across her chest. The puppet remained still behind her, flicking its tongue into the air with quiet vigilance. "Which creature are you referring to?" she asked, voice firm but composed. The crowd pointed to the towering puppet behind her. Naruko allowed herself a hidden smile behind her mask, then gently scratched Shin behind the ear. She nodded and said, "I'm not a hero. I assist when asked, but my help comes at a price. Tell me what you need, and I'll let you know my terms." An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd, bowing deeply before Naruko. "Oh, noble one," he said respectfully. Naruko's brow twitched slightly. "We humbly request your aid. A fearsome creature, what we believe to be a dragon, has claimed the Suna-bound train tunnel. We are desperate. Please, help us. We will meet any condition you name." The rest of the townspeople followed suit, bowing in unison before the young kunoichi. Naruko raised an eyebrow and glanced at Shin, who simply shrugged and nodded in agreement. "Wait, a dragon? You must be mistaken. Creatures like that are only spoken of in legends," Naruko reasoned calmly. "I swear it's true," came another voice, this time from a retired conductor with a wooden leg. "I saw it myself, it drove away our town's leader, Isami." Naruko sighed. "All right. Suppose I do believe you, what compensation are you prepared to offer in exchange for me handling this?" Dragon? Anything you ask, noble one. A woman called from the back, and the others nodded, confirming her words. Then here are my terms, Naruko said firmly. I want 10% of all profits generated by this town, to be collected monthly. I want a ninja academy to be established here, I'll supply the educational materials myself. And lastly, this town is to respond solely to me in all matters of protection. The elder nodded without hesitation. Agreed. You may call me Kumo, not after the cloud, but the spider. We accept your conditions, Kumo-sama, he said with another respectful bow. Just please help us with the dragon. I need that in writing, Naruko replied, pointing at the conductor. And I want you to serve as witness. Paper? The conductor exclaimed, and a child rushed forward, proudly holding up a notebook and pencil. The townspeople huddled together, muttering and discussing, until finally, the conductor hobbled back with a document signed by over 10 witnesses. Here it is, Kumo-sama, he said. Naruko glanced over the terms, nodded, and safely pocketed the agreement. What do you know about this so-called dragon? She asked. It breathes fire. And it's extremely strong. The man explained with wide eyes and flailing arms. If it's so dangerous, why haven't you relocated? Naruko asked. We are a proud people, one elder said. Our roots run deep here. We can't abandon our home. Flashback end. I need you to wait here, Shin-chan, Naruko said gently to the girl clinging to her. You're strong, but not quite ready to face something like this. You'll come back, right? Shin asked quietly. Of course I will, Naruko smiled. I'll leave a clone with you. She formed a quick series of hand seals, and in a flash of fire, a second Naruko appeared beside her. The clone opened her arms, and Shin ran into her embrace. I'll be back soon. With that, Naruko summoned Cho, then leapt onto Python's head. The large puppet slithered smoothly into the dark tunnel, followed by the rolling tank puppet. The tunnel was silent, but Naruko remained on alert. Suddenly, a blur collided with Python, slamming into its side repeatedly. Naruko jumped down just in time, sending Cho ahead to distract the attacker. She quickly repaired Python's dented head with a precise flick of her finger, bringing it back into fighting form. The glowing green eyes of Python illuminated the tunnel. The attacker finally came into view. A dragon. It was long and slender like a serpent, with compact yet powerful limbs. Its wings were small but efficient, and its eyes gleamed bright yellow. Scales of deep gold and crimson shimmered faintly in the light. Its rectangular head bore rows of gleaming, razor-sharp teeth. It resembled a creature straight out of ancient legends, perhaps a stylized Chinese dragon. It hurled Python into the wall again and again. Naruko cut her connection, allowing the puppet to go limp and extinguish its glowing eyes, plunging them into darkness. She focused her chakra into Cho, trying to free the tank puppet from the wall. The dragon turned toward the sound and moved toward Naruko. She tensed as its gaze locked on her. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she channeled her energy. Come on, she urged internally. The dragon's mouth glowed, energy gathering for a blast. Just as the fiery orb surged toward her, Cho spun free from the wall and lunged, opening wide to absorb the fireball. Its belly glowed red from the heat. Naruko quickly reinforced the containment seal inside, compressing the blast to a small, dense sphere, then launched it right back at the dragon. It struck the dragon's eye. The creature let out a mighty roar and swung its tail in frustration. Naruko exhaled in relief, reconnected to Python, and changed its shape. Spines along its body sharpened and began to rotate like a drill. It spun forward, striking the dragon repeatedly and pinning it against the wall. Cho joined in, spitting the remnants of the absorbed fire. She then shifted tactics. Python coiled tightly around the dragon's body, constricting its movements. The dragon tried to gather fire again, but Cho crashed into its jaw, interrupting the attack. The dragon gasped and writhed, but the pressure from Python's coils grew stronger. Disoriented and winded, it gave one last mighty roar before its eyes lost their glow. Naruko's legs trembled before she knelt, her chakra thread still keeping her Python-inspired puppet coiled around the majestic creature. The battle had been as intense as her confrontation with the Mizukage. Taking deep, steady breaths to regain her composure, she then summoned 6 fire clones. Together, they began the process of sealing the mystical beast. You never know when the remains of a legendary creature might come in handy, she thought to herself. After personally sealing away her puppets, she walked calmly out of the tunnel where a curious and supportive crowd waited. A month and a half later. In a secluded location, within a tall, dimly lit tower, A masked figure with a single visible eye appeared visibly frustrated. How did we lose the three tails? Zetsu reports that a young ninja was responsible, turning the tide in favor of the hidden mist. This delays my plans, but does not stop them entirely. When I discover your identity, Kumo, you will deeply regret your interference, the mysterious figure muttered. His cloak bore a red cloud design, the unmistakable symbol of the Akatsuki. Are you all right, Madara Uchiha? Came a calm voice from behind. Another figure sat regally on a raised platform, metal pipes extending from his back. His deep red hair framed a serious face, and his unique purple eyes, marked by concentric ripples, gave away his identity as the bearer of the Rinnegan. I was merely reflecting on the setback with the three tails, Madara replied. It will take another 3 years before we resume efforts to gather the Jinchuriki and their tailed spirits. A temporary obstacle, said the man now known as Pain. He turned to the woman standing by his side. A loss, wouldn't you say, Konan? Konan's indigo hair was adorned with a delicate blue origami rose. Her cloak, like theirs, bore the Akatsuki's emblem. Though calm, her expression hinted at unease. I still question the wisdom of these actions, Nagato, she said in a measured tone. Collecting the tailed spirits doesn't align with our original vision. I worry we are drifting from our purpose. Her eyes narrowed slightly at the masked man. This plan feels more like his than ours. Madara chuckled lightly and turned away. If your companion continues to object, Pain, she may find herself in a complicated situation. He stepped into a swirling vortex and vanished. Pain remained still, his gaze on Konan. If you no longer support our goal, then leave. Return when you understand that this is the only path left to create peace. Her tone never shifted as she responded, Nagato, why can't you see that this man is manipulating you? I am beyond manipulation, Konan, he retorted, his composure slipping. We've spoken of this already. Do not force me into actions I will not hesitate to take. Now, return to your duties in Amigakure. She turned toward the door, but paused and looked over her shoulder. Yahiko would never have wanted peace to come through this means. His eyes burned with frustration. This is exactly what he would have wanted. Konan did not flinch. He would be heartbroken to see how far we've strayed. Please, realize you're being led down the wrong path. With that, she walked out. Restoring what was now called Trains Town took less time than expected. Homes, railways, and infrastructure were rebuilt with dedication. The community showed unwavering commitment to revitalizing their home after the incident with the dragon a month earlier. As the Ninja Academy neared completion, Naruko had her fire clones begin training those willing to learn the disciplined aspects of being a shinobi. She had no interest in spies or agents. She was forming a personal defense force, an organized unit that would protect the town, follow her guidance, and not accept external missions. The townspeople were especially motivated knowing it was their hero instructing them, though they still hadn't stopped referring to her that way. Before departing, Naruko left behind a powerful fire clone to continue overseeing training and shared her personal collection of educational scrolls. For additional learning, the villagers would need to acquire more texts externally. With Shinyu safely resting on her back and her puppets securely sealed, Naruko gave a final wave to the bustling town and set out for the quiet borders of Amigakure no Sato. She had traveled several miles when a booming sound echoed through the landscape. Like any determined 8-year-old with a sense of adventure, she sprinted toward the sound, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. But upon remembering that Shinyu was peacefully asleep on her back, she created a clone to find a safe cave for rest and then signal her once the shelter was secured. The tremors from the sound still rippled through the ground. What was that? She wondered, sprinting faster now, unaware that she had left her mask in the hands of the young child they had met earlier. Konan had never experienced such emotional strain. She had been overpowered and left outside the village limits, her strength diminished by the confrontation with Pain's multiple paths. From the edge of a small crater, Pain's human path spoke firmly. When you come to understand that this path leads to true peace, you are welcome to return, Konan. Otherwise, consider this a farewell. The animal path summoned a large bird, and the group departed back toward Amigakure. Konan, injured and overwhelmed, struggled to move. Pain surged through her limbs, and though tears formed in her eyes, she refused to let them fall. Nagato. What happened to you? As unconsciousness crept over her, she caught a glimpse of a figure bathed in the golden hue of dusk. A young girl, no older than a child, hovered above her with eyes of deep green filled with genuine concern. The last rays of daylight framed her in a soft, radiant glow. For a fleeting moment, Konan wondered if she was seeing an angel, so innocent, so bright. An angel, she whispered before darkness embraced her senses. Hearing the word from someone he had never met, Naruko blinked, puzzled. Huh? She murmured softly, kneeling beside the injured woman. She examined the young woman's injuries with focused concern. Fractured fingers on the left hand, dislocated arms, a possible fracture in the left leg, and perhaps a mild concussion. She also has some minor cuts and bruises, not life-threatening, but definitely in need of care. The thought weighed heavily on her as she looked down at the injured girl, her tears trailing silently down her pale face. Her makeup was smudged, and her complexion was losing color fast. With a quiet sigh, Naruko whispered to herself, "Why is it so hard for me to walk away?" She summoned 5 shadow clones and instructed them to collect supplies, wood for splints and materials for a makeshift stretcher. Gently and efficiently, she worked to reset the dislocated joints and applied the splints to stabilize the fractures. Her clones assisted in lifting the young woman onto the stretcher with great care, Naruko holding her head steady throughout the process. Naruko couldn't use advanced healing techniques at the moment due to limited chakra reserves, but she was knowledgeable in traditional herbal remedies. Once they arrived at the cave, she laid the girl on a pile of warm blankets that her clones had already prepared. She then carefully wrapped the injured limbs and fingers in fresh bandages. 4 clones went out to gather healing herbs and roots, while the remaining 2 searched for food. She built a small campfire at a safe distance to provide warmth and comfort. A child nearby, Shinyu, was still resting beside one of Naruko's clones. Upon the clone's release, Shinyu collapsed, but Naruko gently caught and covered her with a soft blanket. The girl blinked sleepily and offered a tired smile. "Go back to sleep," Naruko whispered, and Shinyu nodded before settling down again. Turning her attention back to the stranger, Naruko gave a reassuring smile. "You'll be fine in no time." She placed her palm gently on the woman's forehead and murmured, "Still running a fever." Soon after, the clones returned with herbs and roots. Naruko directed them to boil water and carefully prepare a healing brew. The roots were crushed and mixed into the infusion, then poured into a wooden cup. Just as they completed the preparation, 2 clones returned with a wild boar. Naruko nodded. "Start preparing it." The blonde watched her patient with care. As a clone propped up the girl's head, Naruko slowly brought the cup to her lips. The girl coughed softly at first, but Naruko gently massaged her neck, encouraging her to drink. Afterward, a damp cloth was placed on her forehead, and Naruko applied some of the leftover herbal leaves to her bruises. Occasionally, the girl winced, but Naruko remained calm and gentle. "Still running a bit of a fever," she noted, checking her forehead once more. She offered her more of the remedy, hoping it would speed up the healing. It was late now, nearly midnight, the crescent moon high in the sky. Naruko looked out at the serene landscape and quietly wondered how long it would take for her guest to fully recover. 16 days later, the young woman stirred awake, her eyes snapping open. She sat up slowly and gazed around the warm, stone-walled shelter. A figure sat near the fire, stirring a pot filled with a rich, savory broth. She tried to stand. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the person said kindly. The voice was youthful and gentle. "Your leg's not ready to carry weight yet." A brief pause. "And no, I didn't mean anything by that." With a small smile, the girl approached with a wooden bowl. "Here. It's hot, so be careful. You need your strength." "Who are you?" she asked in a quiet, emotionless tone, though her eyes flicked around the space anxiously. Naruko let out a small sigh and set the bowl down. "I'm someone who believes in helping others, especially those in need. You're in a cave I found not far from the village of Ame. And yes, I tended to your wounds and made sure you were safe and comfortable," she said with calm honesty. The woman blinked at Naruko, all briefly flashing in her eyes. The firelight behind Naruko created an almost angelic glow. She looked peaceful, almost luminous. "Hello? Earth to you?" Naruko teased gently, waving a hand in front of her face. The woman blinked and blushed faintly, quickly masking her expression. Naruko reached out and lightly checked her temperature again. "Your fever's gone down." She carefully lifted one of her arms and moved it gently. "Do you feel any pain?" The woman shook her head. "Other arm?" Again, she shook her head. Naruko turned back to the pot and ladled some food into a bowl. "Do you want to feed yourself or would you like help?" The woman reached out and took the bowl slowly, her fingers briefly brushing Naruko's. She nodded in thanks and began eating. Despite trying to stay composed, she found the food absolutely delicious and had to stop herself from eating too quickly. Naruko chuckled. That good, huh? The woman flushed and nodded, grateful but slightly embarrassed. Can I ask? What happened to you? How did you end up out there? The woman set her bowl aside and nodded. I'll tell you if you tell me why you were out there in the first place, she said evenly. And your name? Naruko thought for a moment, then gave a small nod of agreement. The woman motioned for her to sit, and she began to speak. She told Naruko everything, her life as an orphan following the Third Great Shinobi War, the tragic loss of a childhood friend, and her involvement with a group that had once sought peace but had been led astray. She described the masked figure who manipulated them, and how her closest companion had been misled into following a misguided path. Naruko listened attentively, never interrupting. She admired the woman's honesty and strength. I believe that Masked Man has a hidden agenda, the woman concluded, her tone firm and passionate. And I'm certain he's using my friend for his own selfish purposes. She turned to Naruko and hesitated. What about your story? Naruko leaned back and glanced at the peacefully sleeping child near the fire before returning her gaze to the woman. She told her the truth, how her family had unintentionally overlooked her, how she learned everything on her own, and how she slowly built a network of allies who trusted her. She was now leading a small group and had been traveling toward Ame to uncover why there had been so little reliable information about the region. If you had gone there directly, the woman warned softly, you may not have come back safely. She was taken aback by this. Wait. I could have just snuck in, right? The rainfall surrounding the village is infused with chakra. The moment it touches someone who doesn't belong, they're instantly detected and surrounded. There's no way to bypass it unless you're a recognized member of the village, the woman explained calmly. Why are you telling me this? I would have expected you to keep that hidden. Isn't it risky to reveal that kind of information? What if they found out you spoke to me? Naruko asked gently, arching an eyebrow. You're lucky I know how to keep a secret. I'm not worried, Naruko-san, Konan replied, her voice firm as she looked toward the ceiling with a composed expression. I plan to return and speak with Nagato. I want to help him realize that the direction he's taking isn't wise. Naruko furrowed her brows. If you disagree with his path, why go back? Why not share this with another village, one that has the strength to help? I don't know, Konan admitted, wrapping the blanket more tightly around her shoulders. Maybe I just needed someone to talk to. Naruko offered a small smile and gave a silent nod. She stood up, ladled more warm broth into a bowl, and gently handed it to Konan before sitting back down. Konan took a sip, her eyes distant and thoughtful. You might not be a medical ninja, but you're probably right. It'll take at least a month before I can walk again. Take your time to heal, Naruko said with a supportive tone. Thank you, Naruko-san, Konan replied softly. She resumed eating, but suddenly paused, eyes wide. If Nagato refuses to see that the masked man is manipulating him, then maybe I can stay close and observe. Maybe I can work from the inside, to stop them before they go any further. I could help you. As your ally within the Akatsuki. Though excitement surged inside her, Naruko remained composed on the outside. That's a big risk. If they even begin to suspect you, you could be in danger. I understand that, Konan said resolutely, her voice filled with determination. But if it helps protect others, especially your sister, then it's worth it. Naruko sighed quietly and looked at her with concern, then gently held her hand. If you see even the slightest hint that they're onto you, I want you to leave. Promise me. I don't want anything happening to you because of this. Konan gave a small, heartfelt smile. I've made my choice, Naruko-san. And if I can prevent something terrible from happening, then I will carry no regrets. And I'll always remember you, Naruko-san. Naruko nodded and made to stand, but Konan gently held her wrist. Could you maybe stay for a little longer? She asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. Just to talk. If that's okay with you. Naruko smiled kindly. Sure. You're feeling warm, maybe a fever? She said, placing a hand gently against Konan's forehead. I'm fine, Naruko-san, Konan stammered, gripping her hand tightly, flustered. Could you tell me more about yourself? And so, the night passed quietly. They shared stories, hopes for the future, and personal thoughts, though Konan kept some feelings quietly tucked away. To her, it felt comforting to confide in someone. Naruko understood the feeling well, having had a close companion by her side longer than Konan had. Thank you for coming, Naruko, Minato said gently from behind his desk, with Kushina standing at his side. He motioned for Naruko to sit in the chair opposite him. Please, have a seat. Naruko sat wordlessly. How have you been? It's been a while, he continued kindly. I'm fine, To-sama, Naruko replied, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Why did you call for me? Kushina answered, concern etched in her voice. We've just been worried, sweetheart. You haven't been home lately. I've been staying at a friend's place, Naruko replied, keeping her tone even. You still have a room here. Is this about the announcement we made during Mito's birthday celebration? Minato asked, oblivious to the fact that it had also been Naruko's birthday. Naruko's jaw tightened slightly. Her voice was flat but calm. No. Then why are you distancing yourself? We want to reconnect. And? When is your birthday, Naruko? The Hokage asked, finally realizing. Naruko's clone looked down, the shadows hiding her expression. There's no need for apologies or gifts, To-sama. I'm fine. We could train you, Kushina said quickly, trying to reach out. You've awakened your chakra, haven't you? Naruko clenched her teeth slightly. The room grew quiet and tense. Her voice, however, remained composed. There's no need, Ka-sama. I appreciate the offer. Why are you being so distant? We just want our daughter back, Minato said, his voice rising slightly as he stood. Naruko rose slowly to meet his gaze. The weight of her presence caused Minato to stagger slightly, and Kushina sank to her knees, overcome with emotion. Naruko calmly reached into her pocket, put on her sunglasses, and immediately the atmosphere lightened. With an unreadable expression, she spoke evenly. I'm not being stubborn. I've worked hard, ask anyone who knows me well enough. If you truly wish to see my strength, speak to them. She gave a respectful bow and turned to leave. Her parents remained silent, unable to call her back. As Naruko walked toward the exit, she paused and, with precise chakra control, gently lowered her sister from a hiding spot above. You gasped too loudly, Mito-chan, she teased, ruffling her sister's hair affectionately. Mito pouted, then smiled shyly. Are you okay, Wani-san? I'm just a little upset. Nothing for you to worry about, Naruko replied, patting her sister's head. Mito's face lit up. Hey, me and the girls are going shopping soon. Do you want to come too? Naruko raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, you already told them I would? Mito blushed. Maybe. Naruko chuckled. All right. I'll go. But next time, don't promise on my behalf, okay? You're the best, Wani-san. Mito cheered, grabbing her hand and dragging her along. And you're paying. Of course I am, Naruko muttered with a playful sigh. Dear YouTube family, that's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed this digital dive, smash that like button, share the energy, and subscribe for more high-level content straight from the six-path dimension. Thanks for tuning in, until next time, stay powered up. This is Six Path Weeb, signing off.